Hello, hello, everyone. Hello. Hello. All right, so we're gonna wait for everybody to get in the room, and then we're gonna have a real good conversation while I wait on my Chipotle to come. And I want to talk about how to know if a man has the capacity to love. So hello. I'm gonna let everybody get in the room before we even get started. Make sure that you can see and hear me before we have this conversation. Hello to Spice, good afternoon. Hey dear, hey love. Is this thing with white? Hello everyone. First of all, I see the conversations being had about love and men. And I'm going to tell you this is my thoughts on it. And not only my thoughts, we're going to talk about how to recognize his behaviors that may indicate that he doesn't have the capacity to love, and actions that may indicate that he does have the capacity to love. Now, when it comes to capacity, all men do not have the capacity to love. And it's actually important for you to understand and recognize the signs and behaviors that he does not. I think what we need to do as women, we need to go in with the mentality that the men have the capacity to love until we know different. So I want to talk about, let's start here with what happens and what you see as far as behaviors when a man does not have the capacity to love. The first behavior that I can give you is that when a man doesn't have the capacity to love, he doesn't like women. He views women as objects and not as people. He will always find fault with everything. Another way you can also recognize that this man does not have the capacity to love, he has a history of abuse or addictions. He does not have room for you because his addictions have taken hold. And that could be alcohol, sex, or drugs. He doesn't have space for you. Another way you'll be able to recognize that he doesn't have the capacity for love is he doesn't listen to you. He will never relinquish influence. He is never going to listen to your suggestions. He's never going to listen to your ideals. You have no influence with him. This means he doesn't have the capacity to love with you. And with you is very strong. So you have to recognize that when that happens. He uses and disposes people for his own gain. And I know this may be disheartening for some of the girlies who are like, well, I'm going to let him go and be with a pick-Misha. She's going to build with him. And then once he's done with her, I'm going to have him. He's going to take care of me. Let me give you a little bit of hard truths. When a man doesn't have capacity to love, he's going to dispose her just like he disposed you. Maybe you have something to offer in the moment, but eventually your time will come. So you don't want to deal with the man who's able to dispose people like he disposes his underwear every day. Okay? He's entitled. He believes if he bought you dinner, you owe him something. He does not have the capacity to love because it goes back to him looking at women as though they are objects. He has a lot of, there's a word for it. I don't want to lose it there, but he is very selfish. See, one of the things that women need to understand men to a level of how do men love, and I think that's something I'm going to address in Unlocking the Male Mind. I'm going to address how men love and how the process of love works, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out here on social media. One, for women who've never been loved by a man, or who've never experienced love by a man, from a man, or they haven't done the research. Let's say they haven't done the research also to what it truly looks like if they haven't experienced it. So I'm going to break that down in Unlocking the Male Mindset in that upcoming workshop this Saturday. But a man, if he's selfish, he doesn't have the capacity to love. And I'm going to tell you why. I will explain why. It's because of the fact that men don't look at love like women do. Men look at love as though it's meant to hurt. And the reason they look at it as though it's meant to hurt, because they believe in self-sacrifice. They don't think like women do as far as it's easy. It's not meant to be easy according to men. So if he's in love, he has to self-sacrifice. He has to be willing to put you before himself. So if he's selfish, he doesn't have the capacity to love. And he doesn't have the capacity to give you what you're looking for. And I think it would be helpful to women when they recognize very early on, men are absolutely capable of love. That is not the truth. When you hear this ideal floating around that men can never love, that isn't true. There's been so much research. They've done brain scans on men and women being able to identify love within the body and how it looks and the hormones that have to happen in order for love to happen. But the thing is, we don't understand love as a collective. And since we don't understand love as a collective, we think that it's supposed to be right away and it's supposed to happen immediately. And that's not the way love works. Scientists have identified love as a bunch of neurotransmitters and hormones that continue to show up over time. And it happens over time. Signals happen over time in order for love to happen. And since it happens over time, there's no such thing as falling in love at first sight. It can't happen. And unfortunately, a lot of women believe that as soon as they get married, that this man is in love with them, and he isn't. I've always been an advocate of telling you that when you meet a man, and even if he proposes, even if he pursues, even if he does the thing to go after you, get that ring on your finger, he doesn't love you, because there hasn't been enough time for the neurotransmitters and hormones to get into place and position for love to happen. And it has to happen. And there's certain situations that have to line up in order for love to happen. So if he doesn't have the capacity to love, he can never admit he's wrong. He's always going to place the blame on you. He's always going to pass the buck. He's always going to say it's someone else's fault. He doesn't have a capacity to love. He tells you that he sucks. And a lot of women ignore it. When a man tell you that he ain't been good for no woman, that it ain't never worked out with another woman, baby, believe him. Look at him as though he's preaching the gospel about himself. Stop thinking that he can be changed or something can happen or you can make it right, because you cannot. He's already telling you that he does not have the capacity to love you or to show up for you or to be there for you. Take him at his word. Another reason a man doesn't have the capacity to love, and the behavior you may see, is that he has unhealed trauma. If he's still worried about what his mama did to him, what his daddy did to him, what other people did to him, he cannot, or he doesn't have the place or position for you. The trauma lives there. When trauma lives in a man, he does not have the capacity to love you. He doesn't have the capacity to show up for you in the manner that you need him to show up for. Now, let's talk a little bit about the signs that you want to see when a man does have capacity to love you, so that you can recognize it and know that, okay, he's not showing these behaviors, but he's showing these signs. And this goes back to science too. First of all, one of the things I do, and I do very well, is I research. I follow research. I follow biology. I follow anthropology. I follow these scientists in order to figure out how to explain it on a hormonal level and what hormones are needed in order for this to happen. So when a man is attracted to you and he's interested in you, he's infatuated with you, and he's pursuing you, if you don't see gentleness coming from you, because that's what the hormones do for him. When a man is attracted to you and he wants to get to know you and he wants to basically sleep with you, some of the hormones come into play and they gentle him. They soften him. Because when men are with other men and there's a lot of rough play and there's a lot of, play fighting that goes on, they don't have to be gentle. And this is something that happens hormonally inside of a man, so that when he's attracted to a woman, the hormones gentle him so that he'll be more attractive and bring in more the woman. So the woman will be more interested in him. So you want to see gentleness from him, and you want to see him come in wanting to see you smile, wanting to see happiness on you, because it does something for them. And I'm going to go deeper into this in Unlocking the Male Mind. I'm going to talk about the fact that men are waiting on your cues, and those cues that you give, either unconsciously or consciously, he's aligning to them and adapting. So if he is doing his due diligence to get you to smile, doing his due diligence to seek out your happiness and to self-sacrifice for you, these are all signs that he has the capacity. The signs, we haven't went to the behaviors yet. These are just signs that you want to see. So at the very beginning, he doesn't soften for you. He's really mean to you. He's really nasty to you. He's calling you out your name. Baby, he don't have the capacity to love. Even the signs aren't there to indicate that he has the capacity. So I want you to know the signs that he doesn't have the capacity, but I also want you to be aware of the signs that he does. And you need to be aware for that and be paying attention. Is he being gentleman? Because then you want to know that you want to see the hormones in work. You want to see that even when you do something that aggravates his spirit, he's still really kind to you. He even softens his tone when he's talking to you because he wants to see that smile. He wants to see that happiness. He's waiting on the cues that you're giving off to say he's doing a good job. So you want to see that. You want to see gentleness from him. You want to also see that he's focused on you. That comes with attraction. This affects his behavior. The male's brain is set up with brain rewards. It's activated. Okay. And usually it takes time. I'm not going to give up my timeline here on unlocking the male mind. I'm going to leave that for the workshop because I'm going to give you a timeline of what you're supposed to be looking for and how to see and deepen that bond for love with the man. But you definitely want to see the signs that he's very gentle with you, that he's seeking your smile and your happiness, that he's willing to self-sacrifice, that he's focusing on you, that he's somewhat addicted to you because the hormones make him love drunk. They make him love drunk. Literally, you could have a scar across your face, and if a man is in this phase, he doesn't even see it. Like, a lot of us are always baffled by the type of women that men choose. It's because some men are love drunk. And what it does, it pretty much blocks out all the flaws of the woman. And so in front of him, she could be a woman who's overweight. She could be a woman with a scar on her face. She could be a woman that is handicapped or disabled. He will not see it in his face because he's love drunk. And all he's trying to do is look for the cues to look at you and seeing the cues of approval. And so we'll talk more about that in unlocking the male mind. Let's focus on just the capacity to love. So there is a process of bonding, and it does take time. That's the reason why I said a lot of us don't want to admit or don't understand that we never felt love from a man. We've never experienced love from a man. And I think the workshop I have coming up on Saturday, this is actually going to be very beneficial to women who've never experienced it, but you want to experience it. You want him to be all in. You want to be with a man that has the capacity to love you and see you for who you are, and absolutely take accountability, because that's what we're going to go into. When he has the capacity to love, and these are all basically, you want to say, the green flags. If you want to say this is the green flags of him having the capacity to love, we're going to go here. First, he takes accountability. He doesn't just pass the blame. He doesn't pass the buck. He says he's wrong, and he knows he's wrong, and he's always trying to figure out how do we go and fix it? How do we make it work? How do we become each other's complement? He's willing to learn and communicate and voice his feelings. He lets you see him. I don't think women realize it. Some of us have never seen a man, not his true form and not his natural habitat. We've only seen a percentage of him. And I'm going to give you an estimate, and it's not an estimate based off from research. It's estimated based off what I've been seeing in real life and on social media from other men, is that majority of men are at a 80% of being able to be seen. Most of the time, in order for them to actually release that and actually be all in with you so that you can see them, so that you can actually, they can be vulnerable, there's other factors that have to come into play that I don't see anyone talk about on social media that we'll get into later on. But he has to be willing to sacrifice for his partner. He has to be willing to put you first. He has to be able to, even if it's down to the last piece of meat, he has to be willing to give his partner that piece of meat. And this is how you know he has that capacity to love. And like I said, he's gentle. Gentleness, you definitely want to see him being gentle. Because those are signs, those are behaviors that you're going to see if a man is still basically under the influence of his own hormones. And under those influence of his own hormones, she'll operate as though she can do no wrong. That in that stage, he will feel as though you can do no wrong. And anyone that comes up against you, he will cut them out of their life. He will cut them out of his life. He's super self-aware. He's super self-aware. He's wanting to make sure that he is aware and he's willing to have those conversations. He's not avoiding tough conversations. He's not throwing things back off on you. He's standing in his truth. He does that. I don't want to go down that path. I'll leave it alone because that'll be complicated. I don't got a lot of time for that. But he has emotions. He has empathy. He gives you empathy. He gives you empathy. He has empathy. But a man has the capacity to love. But I feel like most men operate at 80% capability of love and not full capacity. And the reason I'm going to say that is because as long as a man doesn't have these 4 things, I'm going to give you the 4 things that I was going to say for the workshop. But I feel like if I don't say it here, you're not going to get the understanding because I'm all over the place. And it's because I'm hungry. You know, I'm hangry. Anyway, there's 4 things that a man must have to get to full capacity. That is contentment, attraction, emotional connection, and trust. And if he doesn't have these 4 things, he is not going to be to full capacity. Most men, even married men of today, and me being a married woman and operating in these spaces, majority of men are operating from an 80% capability of love and not full capacity. And the reason for that is because if he's missing a space, men and their hormones, they tend to shut down. They're very singular focused and they shut down and they withdraw. And what happens since they're looking to us for certain cues, we as women sometimes give the wrong cues. And it's not our fault. I feel like it's not our fault because a lot of things that I know I had to learn. Like when I went into this marriage, I was a hot mess. I was combative. I was over emotional. I've told you some of my stories on YouTube, how I acted in the very beginning. And I had to get my stuff together because I had at least 1 kid by that time. And I did not want to break up my family based off my attitude and his attitude and us being combative. Okay. So I had to learn a lot about understanding men, even though I grew up in a family around a lot of men. But then I started to study them and not just study them, truly understand them. So now that's how I can say majority of men are operating from 80% of capability of love, and they're not expressing themselves to the capacity of love that they can. They're actually capable of more, of giving you more. And most of us, we're greedy women. We want it all. We want all 100% of our men. But then you have to make sure that you give him 4 of those areas. And attraction doesn't just mean sex. See, that's the issue with living in a sexual society. We tend to associate everything with sex. We think sex is going to make everything better, even when it comes to marriage, when we're forgetting intimacy is currency. And trust is absolutely needed because there's also masculine and male stereotypes out here about men being vulnerable and about them being too feminine if they are vulnerable and if they express your emotions. You have to be and have to give him the cue that this is a safe space for him to open up. This is a safe space for him to give me 100% of capability, of capacity of love that he can give me. And I would actually, being a woman who operates in these spaces as far as being married, I can tell you majority of men are just holding themselves back. And the reason for that is because women do not understand this. And I'm going to make you feel good in this very moment. Women don't understand. You are the sun. He is the freaking moon. He is the planets. He is rotating around you, paying attention to your cues and the energy that you put out. And he is responding to it. But if a man doesn't have the capacity to love, and that's the reason why I went through those signs first, because I don't want women to be like, oh my gosh, my husband is abusive. Why I can't get him 100% involved in love with me? And I'm going to tell you, because he has an addiction. He has an addiction with control and power. He has an addiction with sex or alcohols or drugs. If a man has an addiction, you cannot take the place of the addiction. He has to actually do the work. Or if he has unhealed trauma, he has mama issues, daddy issues, cousin issues, family issues. He has all these wounds. He hasn't addressed them. And the only thing he does is blame you and hold you accountable for them, but he hasn't done anything for himself. So you have to pay attention. Does he have the capacity? If you realize that this man doesn't have the capacity, leave him alone. Let him be. Let him go be great somewhere else. Because men do have 100% capacity to love. But most of the time, a lot of men are holding themselves back because they understand that there's a lot of stereotypes out here. I remember watching a video on TikTok. You all know how I like to stroll the social media land and look at certain videos. And I've seen videos where women are posting, hey, when my husband expresses himself, or when my husband act like he got feelings, it gives me the ick. Like, those things aren't helping them come out and 100% be in, because all men have the capacity to love until they do not. And unless they have certain behaviors or signs that I just talked about that would indicate that they do not have the capacity to love, you need to go in with thinking majority of men can love me. They do have that capacity. Is absolutely possible. They've done research. There's research after research talking about love. There's literally